Hey guys, and welcome in our studio in Emmeloord. Today a tip about a cowboy and how to shoot it. As you all know, I love playing guitar and recording music. And when I buy a new guitar, the first thing I always want to do is do a photo shoot with it. And this time we got a really special guitar. This guitar has a backstory. And trust me, it's a fake backstory, but it's still fun. The story about the guitar is it's owned by a very famous country and western singer in the 50s. He was very famous. And then, well, disaster struck. And the only thing he could do is play for small crowds in a bar. And then, in time, he became famous again. And I thought, you know what, if this guitar has a backstory, let's use it in a workshop to tell a little bit about storytelling to the attendees and try to create two totally different sets with one prop. So let's start with the first one. For the first one, we wanted to create a bar scene. Remember, in the 50s, very successful, and after that, not so much. So I wanted my model to look down, to be in shadow with her face, just barely lit. So for this setup, we're using a click backdrops, and it's a stone wall, and I thought it was very fitting for this set. On the floor, we just use wood, and that gives you a little bit of that Western bar idea. But now, of course, we want to light it. So I'm using a Giotto GT400 with a small Giotto softbox, including a grid. By using this one, it's able to make the model look down and cover her face in shadow from the head, but still create enough light to light my model, but not enough to spill over on the set. So it creates a very nice quality of light. Now don't worry about the face, we have another light set up for that. Now when you shoot something like this, you have a big gaping hole on the left side. So that's why we decided to place a lamp over there. Now the lamp is continuous lighting. And that means that we have to make sure that I can run on a high ISO and a longer shutter speed. Now remember, when you use continuous lighting, it's cumulative. Or, I hope I pronounce that correct, it adds up over time. When you use strobes, that's a flash, so it's at one moment in time. And that means that you can combine both in one setup. The strobe is determined by the aperture, and the shutter speed determines how much of that ambient light comes in. Now the main advantage of those Giotto strobes is that you can lower the output to a very low level, meaning I can run high ISOs and still shoot wide open. Now for this setup we were aiming for f4 to f2.8 to get more of that ambient light in and still keep the ISO low. Now of course we still wanted that extra accent light, remember, on the guitar and a little bit on her face. Now the microphone is hit by that Giotto softbox, and of course the shadow of the head is also created by that Giotto softbox. But the guitar is way too dark. So that's why we're using a GT250 from Giotto with a magnetic rogue system. And the magnetic system I'm using now is only the snoot. Now this is very tricky, because now we have to determine the angle of the guitar, but also the angle of the microphone. In other words, the light has to hit exactly in the middle, just aiming a little bit on the face of the model, lighting the guitar and lighting the side of that microphone, because the front is actually lit by the Giotto softbox. That means that the set is pretty complicated and the model can, well, literally pose in one position. And to get that nice shine on the maple neck, she actually has to angle the guitar just a little bit back. As you can see in the picture, you don't really see it, but if you saw it on real life, it looks a little bit awkward. And that's the cool thing about photography. Sometimes in the picture you don't see how very awkward the setup was, just to make sure that the lighting works. And I think that's a great thing about photography, right? The soap opera effect. You don't see what's really going on, but it looks natural. Okay, so let's take a look at those darker images. Now you might wonder, like, hey, what did you do with the smoke? Yeah, we forgot to tell you guys about that. So for the backdrop, we're using our bigger smoke machines. But for the front, I'm actually using our LensGo smoke system. Now these are very small smoke machines, and this attachment makes it possible to just aim it down And now I can just play some smoke on the floor and it stays on the floor. And it gives me with photography a lot more playroom, because with the big smoke machine it just blows over and you have to shoot really fast. With this you have a lot more time to take your shot. Now, as I said before, of course, now she's being famous again, so we have to make a really outrageous image. Now, one of the photographers I always connect with fame is, of course, David LaChapelle. Now, we don't have the budget of David LaChapelle, not even 1% of it. But I thought, you know what, let's give it the soul of David LaChapelle, the feel of David LaChapelle. So we decided to take out our blue seamless and get some plexiglass on the floor and take a little rocking horse and place our model on it with her head and just create some fun shots. Well, for lighting, David of course uses a ring flash and I don't have a ring flash at the moment. So what I did is use our GT400 from Gigoto with our largest softbox. Now you have to be careful with a setup like this. You have to place the light further away, because you want to make sure that not only the model is lit, but you also have a nice light fall off on your backdrop. We call that the inverse square law. If you place your light too close to your model, the backdrop will be too dark. If you place your light further away, your backdrop will become lighter, and if you place it very far away, it will be almost equal, but we don't want that here. Now the problem is, of course, if you shoot it with a big softbox like this, it will be very flat. Now normally, of course, we use shadows to create depth. In this case, we don't have any shadows. But you can still create depth. By using 2 strip lights from the side, I'm now creating depth on the side of our model. But we still wanted our model to stand out even more. So that's why we're using a GT250 on the backdrop with our Rogue magnetic system, and again only in the grid. You can even stack grids if you want a smaller circle, but in this case we're only using 1. Now, as you can see, if everything fits together and your model has a lot of fun, you get some really great images. Now I have one more tip for you guys from the side lighting. Now, one of the most irritating parts of using side lighting in a setup like this is actually shadows that go forward, and that looks really annoying. This is why on our strip lights we use grids, so we have less spill light on the bottom, but we're also angling them slightly up. And that means that we don't have those annoying shadows falling forward. Okay. Now, I hope you enjoyed this little tip about shooting a cowboy and using a prop and getting 2 totally different images from one setup. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. If you're interested in our products, you can find them on our website. See you again for the next one. Bye guys.